Webinar on leveraging generative AI in the semiconductor workflows. First of all, I would like to my sincere thanks to everyone who have registered for this workshop and also joined the session now. So yeah, we can get started with a quick look at the agenda. So we will have a quick look into the introduction of Soliton, and then we will start looking at what are the different applications in which we could leverage generative AI across the different workflows in semiconductor industry. And at last, we will also have a Q&A session where you can post all your questions in the chat window as you come across any questions. And probably as we get time at the end of this webinar, we will try to address them lively. So with that, I think we can get started with the webinar itself. Yeah, I'm Govardhanam. I've been with Soliton for the past 8 years, primarily playing the role of a business development manager. And I have been like partnering with Naveen, who's also joining me in today's webinar. And Naveen has started this AI venture within Soliton, where we are specifically focusing at the test and measurement workflows in terms of how AI could be leveraged in this aspect. And I'm partnering with Naveen as a business development partner. Probably I will let Naveen to give a brief intro about himself.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Naveen Subramani, Solutions Architect, Automation and AI from Soliton. So I have spent my last 10 years in enterprise software development for test and measurement industry, primarily semiconductor developing platforms and frameworks for that enables automation for our customers. Actually, yeah.
Thanks, Naveen. Yeah, I think we will get into a brief intro about Soliton. So Soliton, the intro is like we have been in playing a key role in the test and measurement space for the past 25 years, primarily serving our global semiconductor majors in terms of automation and other supporting services around the test and measurement workflows. And during this journey, we had the opportunity to partner with the top 7 of the 20 semiconductor majors, primarily in transformational engagements, where we have provided a transformational solution at enterprise scale. And as an organization, we are someone who give utmost importance to our customer satisfaction, which has resulted in an net promoter score of 74, which is significantly higher than what is an industrial average. While the industry average is around 25 to 30, we have made a significant NPS score, and we are actually proud to share this. This is a recent survey that we have conducted as well. And during this course of period, we have also secured several awards, namely like Supplier Excellence Award from Texas Instruments and National Instruments, to name a few. Yeah, I think we can get on to the next slide. Yeah. So to give a brief picture about the kind of industries that Soliton works and the kind of offerings that we have. So basically, predominantly we work in the semiconductor industry. And second would be the medical devices manufacturing companies. And we have recently started to venture into the automotive and industry 4.0 space as well. While looking at our core services, so primarily we are an service-based company who provide services like software product engineering. For example, if your company is building a software which will be used by our customer, Soliton will partner with you and help you develop the whole software solution for which will be used by your customers. The second offering is on applied AI. So since the advent of public popularity of generative AI, early last year, we proactively started to make our forward investments on building our competency in applied AI. And that is the main topic of today's discussion, where we will deep dive and see how AI is going to be leveraged in different workflows across the semiconductor industry. And we also do services in the workflow automation and data engineering aspect, and also build enterprise scale solutions for our customers. Next slide. Yeah. So probably Naveen, I would like to ask more questions with you and understand how AI is going to help us in this whole journey, right? So to start with, I would like to understand what this whole buzz about AI and what are the common problems in the semiconductor industry, right? That where we could leverage AI to solve these problems. Could you just
Yeah.
share some information about this?
Yeah, so yeah, if you look at the typical test and measurement companies, right? So we see this particular flow, starting from planning where you define your requirements, create the specifications. Then your setup phase where you identify hardware and software for your project. In your development phase, you actually write test scripts and sequences and do debugging. And then you get into your data collection phase. And once you collect your data, then you go into analysis, correlations, and reporting. So typically you see these different phases in your typical test and measurement flow. Or you would represent this like in a V model if you're an automotive, right? But on a high level, there are different phases and there are different softwares that kind of helps you in this particular phases, right? So we have been providing software automation solution, and there are other vendors as well as in-house development where people build automation solutions for these different phases. So there are two problems with this, right? So one is, we kind of call it broken automation, as these actually workflows and systems are not well connected, as there needs to be like a lot of efforts involved in connecting these particular workflows. Now, today, engineers are the connectives, right? Because software from one workflow does not actually work with the softwares and tools from a different workflow. And engineer act as a connectors here, or you need to do a lot of standardization actually. The second problem is the softwares and tools are very reactive, where they provide management of information primarily and not really like a proactive support for engineers in their core test and measurement activities. If I want to kind of point out two examples, right? If you take the planning phase, you would have a lot of tools that manages your requirements, kind of connects your test specifications, right? But they are very reactive, just like storage of information. If you look at automation softwares, they primarily like manage your test scripts and they run it. Primarily, they don't recommend anything, right? So with applied AI team at Soliton, right, one thing that we are focusing on today is how we can bring this proactive intelligence into these softwares and tools that helps engineers in their core needs, be it recommendation of your test scripts, writing your test programs, or helping you in analysis or providing insights, right? That proactive intelligence is what we are kind of focusing on, bringing it into this software tools, and also see how we can improve the engineering experience actually. And with generative AI, right, we feel this is possible today. Go on. Yeah.
Sure, Naveen. Actually, yeah, this is a nice perspective to look at the whole pain point faced in the different workflows. Yeah, I think to maybe I will summarize my understanding. Correct me here. So what you are saying is there are pieces of automation which you are calling as broken automation, and you are going to leverage automation and AI to bridge the gap between these different pieces. And by doing this, you're also making sure you're not going to affect any of the existing infrastructure. So you are taking a non-intrusive approach where you will just retrofit your solution on top of the existing solution. Is that right, Naveen?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think the word non-intrusive is really good, right? So there is already good work done in the existing automation tools and infrastructures, right? Be it sovereign provided or in-house development, people like them, people use them. All right. So good thing about automation is they are reliable, they are fast, and it's on logical operations end of the day, right? But automation can take you only so far. There are limitations, right? And the way we envision is we don't replace any of the existing tools, right? We try to bring AI on top of them, where we try to have AI complement the existing automation solution. So the service that we provide is your customers' existing automation and data tools plus Soliton AI services. We try to kind of enhance and accelerate your growth. And this is something that we do in a non-intrusive way. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, this is clear, Naveen. So, Naveen, could you walk me through some of the workflows where we could best leverage AI so that I can reap the maximum return on investment? So, can you share some information on that front?
Yeah. So I have like four buckets of engineering application area that we feel that brings in biggest wins quickly. All right. So one is engineering data retrieval. So engineering data today is very scattered. For day-to-day operations that requires decision making, right? You need access to the information. You need access to the information quickly, and these informations are very scattered. I mean, it could be like, I need yield data to understand my manufacturing process. You need to understand my asset information to plan my project properly. Or it can be as simple as your understanding your data sheet so that you can understand what's the pin information or register information, right? So how can we get access to these informations to the user's hands quickly? All right. So that's one area where we see applied AI can be used quickly. Well, the second one is insight generation. So where the first bucket more talks about getting access to the data, now not only providing access to the data, right? How you can provide more insights on top of the data, right? That's more of insight generation, where it talks about prediction and recommendation, right? For example, have a data. Here's a root cause analysis of why there could be a problem, or here's an anomaly detection, right? So these are more insights that you kind of get on top of the data, and this is something again applied AI can be useful. The third bucket that we are focusing on, and we are also having a lot of attraction. One is automated test generation. So one of the important activity in test is writing good software. Um, Software became a skill set that test engineer has to possess, because for you, right, day to day, if you have to write more and more good softwares, so you can do more and more tests and do more and more coverages, right? So writing test software has been done across all the workflows, right? Not only validation, verification, manufacturing process, application, even firmware development, right? That is test development is done, and it's a complex process. And we feel this is where AI can kind of help users. The fourth one is on auxiliary flows. Like, you have my data sheet. Probably I want to look at my extract some requirements out of the data sheet, or extract test specifications out of the requirements, or generate reports out of my data. Or even I have my documentation that has to go through an FDA approval to see if I have right documentations in place for the FDA approval, right? So these are kind of different use cases that we see in the auxiliary data workflows. But by and large, these are the four high-level buckets where we feel you can have an immediate value or have a quick wins and success, right, with applied AI.
Sure, Naveen. Yeah, this is pretty interesting. Actually, all these workflows are something in any semiconductor workflow, like you can see delay cost because of these workflows inefficiencies, especially on the automated test generation. That's an interesting piece for me because I already see there is a lot of learning curve involved in an validation engineer for him to be onboarded and performant enough to develop new validation scripts, because this actually requires knowledge about the whole test process and the specifications, the different validation frameworks being in use, my instruments track drivers, a lot of information knowledge this engineer has to possess. Only then he will be able to write a proper measurement script. And if you're going to say like AI can do this, I'll be really interested to see if you have some demo around this topic.
Yeah, I have quite a few demos that I want to kind of show. We'll kind of plan based on time, right? How quickly I can kind of show. Probably I'll start with the automated test generation that we talked about, right? Before getting into demo, I want to kind of show when we say automated test generation, what we really mean, right? How we see this test generation, right? A quick slide. So today, if for a test and measurement, you have two informations given in hand for testing. One is a bench setup, which contains your data instruments and connections and all those things. Then is your requirements. Your requirements could be as simple as it'll have your requirement ID, and then it'll tell probably, hey, here are the 10 requirements that you want to satisfy, and here is the limits. Make sure, not make sure, see if the actual DAT behaves within this particular range, right? This is the requirement that is provided for engineers. Now, what we have done with automation is we have provided few more tools in hands of engineers for their works, right? One is a framework, an automation framework. It can be anything. Essentially, that helps you develop your test and helps loop over different parametric condition and make test efficiently. Next is a bunch of drivers. So again, all your setup might have some hardware. You might be given with the instrument drivers and as well as DAT drivers. If you want to do digital protocols, right, SPI, I2C, I3C, you'd be provided with few communication protocols and libraries that helps you with it. And then some pin information. So this is what engineer is given today, right? So what is engineer's workflow, right? What do they do from here? First step, it's a two-step process. First step is given a requirement, they write the test methodology. Not really write it, but now they kind of come up with the test methodology. A test methodology is not, I mean, your requirement might be as simple as, hey, do a line regulation, see if it's in this particular limit, right? That's what your requirement says. It does not tell how do you do a line regulation. And each company and organization would have their own test procedures in which they go about doing certain measurements more efficiently for their data. So this is something that engineer comes up with based on their tribal knowledge with their company or on their field, right? So they would kind of come up with, okay, if it's a line regulation, probably set the load current constant and then probably vary the input voltage and measure an output voltage. Here is a formula. This is how I make a measurement. You write that particular test methodology. Then you go from this theory to a test program. So a test program is a simple code, right? But then you go from this theory to a test program, and this test program has to run on your framework, has to use the instrument drivers, DUT drivers, and the pin connections, right? So we call it, right, a test program, which is framework aware, pin aware, driver aware, and DUT aware. So you need to kind of create this particular test program, and then you probably close it, right? So where we feel AI can kind of come in places in these two areas. One is test methodology creation. Another one is test code, this measurement plugins development, where you can create this framework aware, driver aware, data aware measurement programs. Right? These are the two areas that we feel AI can be added. Again, the reason I want to kind of show this is we're not kind of telling when we are using AI to do test program generation, it's not going to magically create the whole test project, right? Okay. It's going to create your test programs and that's going to fit it into your framework, your automation tool that you already have, right? It's going to be like a Copilot that helps you do that, actually. I'll show you a quick demo of this particular workflow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for this demo, right, I'm kind of using Instrument Studio. Instrument Studio is from National Instruments. It's kind of a framework of a studio to control your instruments and DUTs. We kind of picked this to show a demo because it has simulated instrument drivers, instruments, so you can essentially kind of run and play with it easily, right? But the system in itself is agnostic of frameworks. It's not really tied to it, but we wanted to demonstrate it through this Instrument Studio, which is very good at it, right? So a quick thing, requirements, right? First thing that we saw in the slide is we get a requirement, and requirement, like we say, it's very abstract. It will be as simple as, right, no, I want to make a line regulation measurement for an input voltage from 3.5 to 8.5 at an interval of 1 volt. This is something that your requirement says, and then what's your load current, right? Again, the first step is like there's two types of engineers. You have to go and write your test methodology, but there are two types of engineer. One is experienced engineer who knows what they wanted to do. So by looking at the requirement, they can go in and type, okay, the step one, probably I want to make my load current constant at 0.005 milliampere. They go write it. Or a young engineer who might need some recommendation, right? So we have kind of an AI system here. What it does is given a requirement, it goes, extracts your test methodology and puts it in here for users to review. Again, be it an experienced engineer or an young engineer, you kind of get your test procedure first. You can review to see if you like this test procedure well, right? Again, we get this data based on your organization information, and it kind of provides you information. Okay, input power supply 3.5 volt. You just ensure it. It talks about you start at 0 voltage. It also gives you the formula recommendation. And here's a formula that you can use it for it. And then it says, okay, then you loop over 5 to 8 with these different voltages, right? We recommend people to review the test procedure if they're happy with this test procedure and go and generate a program for it. I'm confident, so I'm just telling, I'm not reviewing it a lot. So I'm just going to say generate a test program, right? So now what it does is, given this requirement and a detailed test procedure, it creates a Python program that is framework aware, driver aware, data aware, as well as pin aware, right? So it kind of created me a simple Python program, which is like, okay, input voltage, okay, 3.5 to 8.5, I'm sweeping it with a load current. And then it does not use like random drivers, right? It uses the drivers that I have in my project. It uses the interfaces that I have it in my project, because those are something that the AI knows, and AI picks from it, and it kind of creates a program like how I create. Again, as an engineer, right, we would again recommend you to review the program. If you really like it, then you can kind of go and use it, right? Just kind of click run and start making measurements with it. So this is kind of a simple workflow. Again, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which you can look at it. Not every time you need to, the measurement is running, I'll just let it run in the side. Not every time you need to generate the program. Sometimes you might have your program sitting in your repository somewhere. again, before we do generate a program, we can actually do an additional step, which is, okay, I don't want to generate a program. Probably I'll see if there is a reusable code available in my repository. I'll pull that in and give it for you instead of regenerating every time from scratch, right? That's kind of a workflow addition that we can actually do on top of it. And we also kind of talked to few customers, and one of the things that we have understood is, I think there are certain technologies of devices where there is no need to create test programs for every project again and again. The measurements are standard, the setups are standard. I create a program once, I can use it forever. So in those cases, you don't really require an A to generate a program because it's a one-time process, right? But what is a requirement is, what changes from a project to project is not my test program, but my test program settings, right? So is there a way, can I go from my requirements to just a test settings that I can import into my project, right? So again, we are kind of talking about test program generation, but you can also have something like a my project test setting generation, and we can also use that, right? Again, that based on customer needs, we kind of see different customer has different needs based on the devices that they work on, and we can actually address these different needs as well. Go.
Sure. I mean, this is pretty interesting. Like, I think in a matter of few seconds, the system was able to generate a whole measurement script. Ideally, this would have taken at least a couple of hours for even an experienced validation engineer. So I believe this could significantly save a lot of time for the validation engineers, which they could spend elsewhere, primarily in terms of analyzing the measurement data, figure out some problems in the whole design. Right. This is pretty awesome. So probably Naveen, like, since you mentioned you had a previous slide, right? I would also like to have some question around some blocks in that particular slide. Could you please go back to that slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we primarily covered the measurement plugin, the measurement creation itself. But I could also see there are two blocks like the bin setup and the requirements. A lot of times, actually, the real scenario is these informations sometimes are structured probably the requirements spec informations will be structured in a tabular format, whereas the bench setup details, right? Usually it will be in an unstructured format, maybe in some PDF documents or Word documents, or some write up in a particular tool like doors or something, right? So that's pretty unstructured. And sometimes it is also distributed all across the organization's SharePoint and the different databases. So do you also see a way in which you can leverage generative AI to pull all these different pieces of information from different locations and stitch it all together and summarize it for me, right? So is a functionality like that is possible?
Yeah. I think I have a question on chat. I'll probably quickly answer that actually, and I'll get to your question, go in a minute actually. So I think the question is this: what is the role of AI playing in creating a test requirement to the measurement code, right? So what happens actually is we have an AI large language model that is being used. What it does is kind of takes the requirement and measurement steps and converts that into translate that into a test program, right? A test Python program, and that when it kind of creates a particular program, it ensures that this program is created with the, I mean, you can kind of see a few functions, probably like, probably it kind of used VN to set the voltage, right? The reason why it kind of used VN to set the voltage is VN is the kind of the pin, if I open the pin map information, VN is the pin where your source SMU is. So it kind of knew when even with the abstract requirement of, okay, probably set 3.5 volt to your input, it knows input is VN, and I wanted to, and that's an SMU. So I wanted to use V in dot set voltage, and then I set the 3.5 voltage to the instrument, right? So AI does that particular translation to kind of create this particular test program. I kind of kept it high level, and but we'll also kind of dig bit into like, okay, what other things that AI does, right, to kind of help you generate the program in a bit. Yeah. So, okay. Now quickly going back to question Goa that you asked, which is, okay, here is your um, uh, test program generation, right? There are things that happens before and after, which is okay, how did I get this particular requirement? Or when I run this test, it generates data. The data goes somewhere and I want to work with the data. How do you work with these things, right? So all these are more about a data extraction or a requirement actually. So again, the way we kind of think about it is, like we talked about one of the application areas, data retrieval, which is we see today the data are distributed in different places. The requirements can be in like NI solutions, Jira, Jama, wherever it is. Your data can be in your custom databases. Your test procedure could be in your content management system, be it a SharePoint, Confluence, right? It'll be essentially there are different kinds of data, and each data has there are tools which are good at managing different kinds of data, and people use different tools actually to it, and data are all distributed. Now, the way we think is when user has a question, how can we use large language models where when I have a question, right, that knowledge about okay where the data is, how do I retrieve the data instead of a user or a human having it, we provide it to a large language model where large language model acts as that intermediated to kind of go retrieve the data from different sources of information and provide it in a form factor that users can consume and provide insights on top of it, right? So this is kind of how we are kind of solving this data retrieval thing. And we are thinking chat interface obviously is more a natural user experience, and chat interface is a way in which we can kind of expose this to an user, right? I'll kind of show a quick demo of that. So yeah, here we have a simple chat interface. Let's connect back to that test demo, right? So I showed the demo from a requirement, and we are going to a program. Now, the first thing is, okay, I need to know what are the requirements that is available in my project, right? So here I have a chat interface, and this chat system is connected to different data sources. So it's connected to my test methodology source, which is a SharePoint in my organization. It's connected to a measurement data. It's a database. Again, we are hosting, and it also is connected to few algorithms. And these data, like you said, right, it could be structured data, which is like a database or an Excel, or it could be an unstructured data like Word document, PDF, PPT files, right? Wherever it knows to parse and extract these information. So the first question that I would have is, right, show me the specifications for, I'll say LDO 2023. This is the product that we have internally. I made a product, right, for this demo. So what it does is the system knows now, okay, I'm asking for a specification of an LDO 2023. It knew which data source it has to go, which is probably in this case a database. And then it knows, okay, how it can go and extract the data and render it, right? Probably it in a table format. So it shows me the spec ID, symbol, name, min, max limits for the information. So I can now see, okay, here are the specification that I want to satisfy. Now I can probably copy it into my Instance Studio, copy paste it and start generating programs for it, right? Or I can also ask the system, right? Something like, okay, what is a system setup for line regulation? Right. Now, this is more a test methodology question or test specification. So it knew that, okay, it has to go into now my SharePoint or test methodology data shows, right? And it goes extract that particular information and it provides it back to the user telling, okay, hey, here's your test setup. And it also shows the pin diagram that I had in my SharePoint. It extracts and shows, okay, this is the LDO connection that we have, and this is how the you connect it to different instruments, right? It kind of provides that particular information for you. So this is what you asked in terms of, right? If I go to my slides,
exactly.
Like before I get into a test measurement, what are things that you wanted to do?
Exactly.
Now let's say I made the measurement, like I ran an instrument studio and I collected the data, and the data is sitting in my database. Now I need to quickly know, okay, what's the performance? I need to see some plots to see the characteristics, right? So I can also ask, show me the, let's say, measurement data for, I made few measurements, line regulation, load regulation, dropout voltage. I'll say dropout voltage this time. Measurement from LDO 2023. Essentially, I said for this particular product, give me this particular measurement. Not only that, I'll also say I want to see this in a scatter plot. I'll say in a scatter plot and say I'm making things a bit more complex with X let's say current, Y value, and color by temperature. So now what I have given is I have given few intents when I asked, okay, what I want to see. Another thing is how I wanted to see, right? The system now goes, it knew that, okay, probably if it's a measurement data, it's in my database, it goes queries for that particular information from my database, and then it retrieves that particular information and it's supposed to show it in my scatter plot. All right. So let's let it query it a bit. I think probably it's going to time out. I know. Yeah. It says, oh, our backend has timed out. So that's fine. I'll just regenerate it. So this is a problem with showing a live demo. Let me give it another go. I'm not sure my session is expired. Yeah, I thought, yeah, it's been a while that I logged in. So
Naveen, do you have any other?
Yeah. So
a brief chat that you could explain me with.
Yep. I'll kind of show it in a bit. So let the system refresh it. Okay. So yeah, I'll let it query the information, but I think I just have a sample of it. So yeah. So like in a similar question, right? You could expect to see kind of a data like this where you see the data in a scatter plot. And again, if user wants, user can actually override what they see. Probably I wanted to see the data in a line plot, which is bad. Probably in a bar plot, which should be a bit decent. Okay, you can kind of override and visualize it. Right? Essentially, what we want to show it is, I mean, these visualization is not an AI capability, right? One is how quickly you can extract the information to the user. Once user has that particular data and they know probably I want to visualize in different form factor and they can play around with it, right? And this is a system where we kind of give the system access to different data sources and it fetches the information for the users.
This is powerful. I mean, actually, like I can really relate it with the need for a review meeting, right? Where we need to have some measurement data to be visualized and discussed on top of it, right? I think this would come in handy. And again, in the previous questions also, I could see it how it is able to pull the information from. I think the source was some PDF document, if I'm not wrong. The way it pulled the whole test setup procedure, that again is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And probably, Naveen, do you also have a mechanism where you could generate some reports out of this? Probably like an slide deck that you could generate?
Yes. So yeah, one thing I say I just want to kind of let you know this, which is even in the question, if when I say hey, X is a current, you can see even if my data has IL, right, it kind of understands and it maps things, right? It's not really like a keyword matching, or it's more like a semantic, meaningful extraction of data and visualization. And to your point about reporting, one thing with reporting that we have noticed is, people typically have like a presentation kind of a view for doing reports. So what we have done is, again, this is more to demonstrate a capability, right? So I have a data, I'm just pushing this particular data into my like an analyze section here. So this is more like your presentation kind of a view. You can create slides here, like you can add slides and create slides and delete it. And in here, it has now access to your data. I kind of ask how you want to present your data. For example, I want to show the data in a histogram. And it also has intelligence. It kind of tells in my data what all parameters that I have, right? I can say, okay, histogram is value. It kind of plots the information of histograms with value. Or I can say, okay, I like violent plot. Violent plot with, I can say X is something like temperature, and Y is value. It kind of plots this particular information in a violent plot with X again is in a temperature and Y is a value, right? So similarly, you can kind of start creating your different visualizations for your data, and you can kind of create a report out of it. So this is something that you can actually do with this particular system as well.
Sure. This again is interesting. Yeah, I could see a violent plot.
And I can just click generate PPT and it generates a presentation out of it that you can actually share it. Yeah, I'm going to open the presentation because my other presentation will have a problem. So yeah.
Sure. Got it. Probably, Naveen, I just have a basic question. So the extent to which I have used generative AI is only through ChatGPT, but I cannot ask any my organization specific questions to a ChatGPT because I hope it pulls data from the web if it is the GPT-4, the latest version. Even the older version can't even do that. But here I'm able to see you are able to pull information that which is kind of specific to your organization or a customer organization. How is that whole thing possible? Are you actually training the model to work that way?
Yeah. So there are just kind of answer a technical information. So no, I mean, yeah, I mean it's kind of normal to think that okay, if it is a AI that we have to kind of train a model with a lot of information for the model to be in a position that kind of addresses your use case, right? But with generative AI, there is a lot of technologies. Uh, Definitely, fine tuning and training is one way in which you can kind of get the model to do what you wanted. But there are also other use cases for this, primarily the chatbot, right? Use case that we have here. One thing, if you notice, all the data here, I mean, I can't give the data and train the model on it because one is training is costly. Second, these are all live data. For example, measurement data, I upload it in like 4 a.m., 4 p.m. I want to see the data back at 4:05. I can't go and train my data and then have a model respond to me, right? I want to see the live data. All right. So we kind of for use cases like chat interface, data extraction, we kind of use a technique called RAG, retrieval augmented generation. I'll kind of take 5 minutes to just explain a bit about it, right? It's not very complicated. Now, RAG, you need to remember two things: search and summary, right? So how can you, given you have a lot of data out there, given a user query, question, or a prompt, how can you find the relevant data from your terabytes of information, pull it, and then summarize it and provide it to the users, right? Because in the chatbot, whatever demo I shown, it's all live data. It goes into the database, finds that this is the chunk of data that's relevant for the user question and pulls that information for the user. And we use this technique called RAG. To answer your question, which is you kind of compare it with GPT, right? For example, I have data in my organization, like, okay, what is the test methodology? I ask LLM telling, hey, what is this? LLM will say, I don't know. Within your organization, I don't know what is that test methodology that you're talking about. In the approach that we have, the way we do it is, you have a question, we search in the bunch of data that you have, gigabytes or terabytes of the data, and we find the relevant information based on user question. Again, that relevant information is not your answer, but it's just a relevant information, right? And from that relevant information, now you have a handful of relevant information. From this information, we again use large language model to summarize the data and provide back the answer to the user's question from the organization data, right? So this is kind of a typical RAG approach, and this is something that we use in our chatbot as well. I mean, I kind of simplified this. There are like 20, 30 search techniques, and each search techniques are good at different things, right? Even within our system, we use several search techniques because based on the kind of data, based on kind of the data source, you might need to use certain technologies. Similarly for summarization, right? How can you kind of get your perfect results without hallucination and stuff like that? There are different technologies and techniques that has to be applied here, but on a very high level, right? This is how we kind of do. So you don't want the costly training process, right? You can actually solve some of the problems using this stack. So,
Yeah. This is cool. I mean, actually, I hope you are simplifying it for my understanding, but I also hope you are doing a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes to pull this whole thing for this for generating these kind of responses. That's amazing. So, Naveen, I think so far we have seen where you are using generative AI for internal workflows. Uh, are there any ways in which, for a semiconductor customer, we can use leverage generative AI?
yeah. So one of, I mean, the end customers, right? So our customers, end customers. So, so one of the things is, we were looking at is, how does an end customer choose a product, right? I mean, when I want to buy a semiconductor chip, I might have a few questions on, okay, what does this particular chip do, kind of, right? How can we simplify the buying experience, right? Those are some areas where customer wants to leverage generative AI, and I mean, we have been doing a few pilots on it. We will kind of quickly show you this. We have been working on um, this datasheet comprehension thing. So Okay, I'll probably kind of start it from scratch. I'll just create a new chat. So in here, if I wanted to buy a product and I wanted to have an interactive way to kind of see if the product works for me, right? So we kind of create again a chat-based experience for people, so people can come in.
Naveen, I think I'm not able to hear you. Your video also got freezed.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Can
you hear me
yes,
okay?
Yeah, I think you are back.
I'm really sorry. I had to click F11 to go minimize. I clicked F. I think print screen, which is go into airplane mode. So
Okay.
it turned off my Wi-Fi. So let me click the right button here. So let me pull a data sheet, right? That's what I was trying to do. I have a few data sheets here. Probably I'll pick one from Infineon, and probably I'll go here and paste it. So let me go back to F11 properly. Okay. So what I essentially did is you can pick any data sheet from online or offline, and you can push it in the system. And now we can start asking questions on it, right? Like something like, okay, what if I need to know what is the pin details or configurations for this product or something like that. So now again, based on the RAG approach, right, we kind of go into the product datasheet information. And I mean, datasheet could be, this is like that is on page, it could be like 200, 300 pages of datasheet information. We pass that information. Again, for datasheet, we know there are certain things that people would expect from a datasheet. So we kind of pass the information and provide back the answer to the question based on the user, what user asks, right? For example, here, okay, it kind of came back and says, okay, the pin details for this particular product, okay, it gave me 8 pin details. Not only that, it also pointed me in the data sheet, probably in the page number 5, it has that information, right? It kind of points me that information. Plus, it also shows other relevant pages where you have the details, and you can kind of keep asking questions about, okay, I want to have so much top current to see, okay, what is the top current? Would it work for my use case, right? People can converse on the product to see if the product works for them, right? So yeah, this is one area where for end customer, for our customers, right? We are thinking applied AI could be useful.
Interesting. I think this could very well suit an use case for an embedded systems developer or firmware developer too. Like because they will be like pretty much they spend a lot of time in referring different information from the data sheet. I think this could be handy for them. Mm-hmm. And I also hope in a similar way you can extend this AI support for building an support bot kind of a system, right? Right now, all semiconductor companies have their own E2E forums. Probably, I think by using AI, you could build a bot that could pretty much answer all the customer queries and act as a first line of support. Probably could reduce the human headcount too.
Yeah, definitely. I think more the kind of primarily the experience, right? How can you give a new, better experience to your customers as well as users? And I think normally the chat experiences, it's a very way, it's more a natural way of asking what you wanted and getting that information, and having a delivered through that experience is much more effective. And not always, right? For example, like we saw in the test program generation, it need not always be a chat. It's not always a better user experience. We can have a different other user experience as well. Again, based on use cases, we could kind of build that experience into user products.
Sure. I think all these demos are pretty much interesting. But I think there is one gap, right? Like you are showing your demos in a particular framework and a particular scenario. But I think given the nature of the test and measurement space itself, each and every team will have their own custom way of validating their chip. They will use a different instrument stack. Their framework will be different. Sometimes it will be a homegrown solution, and the test methodologies might be different. So it is heavily customized, right? Given this being the scenario, how do you think you'll be able to address with one solution that could pertain to address all these different scenarios?
Yeah. it's not going to be like one solution. Like it's not going to be like one big model that works for all the different use cases actually. And I mean, we have shown like 4 demos here. Again, customers might, 4 demos for specific use cases, right? Customer might have their own specific use case, and we need to develop solutions for those use cases. And it's not always custom solutions, and you have to develop from scratch, right? So the way we are kind of thinking about it is all these, now we are kind of calling it intelligent assistants, right? All these are intelligent assistants, whatever that we have shown. Customer might can have their own thing. What we have built is we have built a platform. I don't want to over glorify the word platform, but essentially we have identified concepts and components that are common across these assistants and made a framework that is easy to kind of develop a secure and scalable assistant and deploy it into a customer workflow. All right. So for example, right, so our platform contains like an assistant management systems where you spin off an assistant and you need to have certain configurations of how this particular assistant has to work for certain engineered use cases, right? You have an assistant management system. Data is a big part, right? Whatever be the assistant, end of the day, they are all going to leverage certain data. Just either it's pre-trained on or using RAG for, right? So you have to have this data vectorize and store this particular data. There is a workflow for it. And these are something that our platform, we have a common platform through which we kind of deliver it. Another thing is user feedback. Again, since it's something that's not going to work 100% on a day one, right? It's all going to be like a in loop or a human in loop kind of a system. You collect feedbacks of how the system works so that you can continuously feed that back and improve the system. So you need to have that particular mechanism, and we have that part of the framework. And another thing is also these assistants has to be, if it's deployed in an organization of like 2,000 people, it has to have that kind of a scale and security, right? And features that enables them is something that we are trying to, we kind of have that in the platform. Another most important thing is model management and model abstraction, we call. Like you said, I mean, it's not going to be like one model that works for test program generation as well as datasheet comprehension. There are going to be models, sometimes pre-trained, fine-tuned, or even if you're using RAG, specific for specific use cases. So you need a model management and model abstraction capabilities in the system. Again, we use models, OpenAI, Azure, or from Llama Hubs, right? We can use it, or also the Solitons of fine-tuned models, right? This is something that we can use as well. Again, we have a model management abstraction capabilities in the framework. And end of the day, we develop the solution, which is using this framework, we develop specific assistants. And these has to be integrated into some of the customer's products or tools, internal tools. For example, test program generation. It has to be integrated into a customer's automation framework, whatever be that. Or even if it's a chatbot, probably they wanted it to be integrated into Microsoft Teams. So we also have workflow integration on top of it, right? Okay, we develop with the API first approach, and then we ensure that we help integrate these assistants into a customer workflow as well. So this is on a high level, kind of what we have as a platform. It's like more like an accelerator IP to provide our services. On top of it, we develop our solutions and services. Go. Actually, I think we have time. I'll kind of take a few more minutes just to show a glimpse of the platform. Go. So, so let me ensure I click F11. Okay. So this is more, I mean, whatever that you have seen as a demo is more user facing, right? Be it end user, like a chatbot or a programmer with an instance. Right? These are all user facing solutions. What is the backend side of it, right? What does that AI admin have that they use to spin off an assistant and deliver it within your organization, right? So this is what we call as AI admin center. This is through which we have developed all these different awards. So you have a place where you develop the assistant. Here I have like chat assistant and test program assistant. Again, if you have like test settings generation assistant, or you might even have like a firmware development assistant. So you can have all those assistant types created and plugged it into the system, and you can use this particular space to create one, right? For an assistant, you need two things. You need data and a model, right? So data, so we have like a space where you can manage all the data sets. For example, in my chatbot, I showed the data from SharePoint and databases, right? So you can kind of create a data set, point to different data management systems that you have, and you can kind of extract and create your vectorized data. So we have a place where you can kind of create data sets. Similarly, models, right? A single assistant can leverage several models, probably it's like a multi-model, right? For example, the test program generation had two steps. One is I need to generate my test case. Another is I want to generate test program and from requirement to test methodology, I'm sorry, and from methodology to a program. And we can have different models that is good at those specific tasks, right? So you need a place where you create many models, spin it off. And then once you have the models and data set, then you connect them to your assistants and you kind of create an assistant, right? So this is how we kind of have a platform here. For example, right, a quick thing is, if I want to create an assistant, you just say, I want to create an assistant. It gives you a configuration page of an assistant. For example, if it's like a chatbot, here I say, give a name to it. Like I say, Soliton webinar bot, something like that. It could also be a programming assistant. If we spin off programming assistant, probably it has a different UX where it asks you about driver details, test methodology details, and things like that. Since it's a chatbot, it kind of asks you those kind of settings, right? I can point it to, for example, I can add a skill and then say, connect it to a data set. Like I say, okay, it's a test methodology. So what happens is now I created a bot that can use this test methodology data set to answer users' question. Similarly, I can add any number of skills I wanted to this particular system and say deploy. I think I haven't configured all the settings. So once I configure all the settings, I can click deploy and it deploys it. What you have is end of the day, that gets pinned off and you get a link using which now you can access that particular part. You also get an API link if you want to integrate it in your any other applications.
Got it. Naveen. This is again interesting. So, Naveen, if I'm not wrong, although you are having a solution in place, the way you are engaging with the customer is not going to be just a product sell, right? Basically, you will engage with customers through service engagement and where you will leverage these IPs as an accelerator to get a head start with the development and not as a product, I hope.
Exactly. So these are all accelerated IPs because we take into the customer so that we don't want to develop it from scratch, right? We have a high level starting point through which we can start solving the business problems. And all these are in a service mode, not selling it as a product or in a licensing mode, right? It's all service that we provide to the customer. And again, on top of it, just to add on top of it, right, two things that we primarily provide to the customer. One is problem identification. That is, we go into the customers, we help identify the problems through our consultancy. And then, once you identify the problem, again, you need to derive a business value. You also need to have a mind map of potential solution of how you're going to address that particular problem. You need to do some discovery and pilots, right? So this is one service that we provide, which is problem identification. The second one, which is a significant part of what we provide, is solution implementation. Which is going to be, okay, now you have a problem in hand. Here is a best solution for it. We develop, deploy, help train the customer to take that solution forward, or even if they want to maintain it at some point, we kind of help them train to do that, right? So these are kind of the two primary services that we provide, and solution implementation is kind of the biggest part of what we provide as well. Yeah, and then I'll just kind of skim through this just considering time. So these are some of the skill set that we have within the ventures team today. So, yeah.
Sure. That seems to be a lot of logos I'm seeing here. So, Naveen, probably maybe I will summarize whatever the learnings I had today. I think in first place you mentioned about the pain point itself in the industry, right? And it is about the broken pieces of automations where it is again siloed and a lot of human intervention is required. And your solution is more of a non-intrusive approach where you bring in automation expertise from Soliton plus the newly built AI skill sets to bridge these gap between the different stages. Right? I hope that is right. And coming to the different workflows that where AI could be leveraged, I think you mentioned about the data retrieval, like we are able to get the pieces of information from distributed data sources. And you are also able to generate insights, probably visualize the measurement data itself. And most interestingly, like you are able to generate a whole test script itself. And surprisingly, that test script is again having a lot of context to what the instrument stack being used, the bin map being used, and your framework in use. And finally, you are having an accelerator IP just to make sure, because anyhow, this is going to be an service engagement with your customers, and there is a lot of customizations going to be expected in this whole journey. And you have an accelerator so that you could speed up the whole onboarding process, and all the bare minimals are taken care of. I hope this summary is correct. Not correct me.
Good, that's a good summary of it.
Yeah, sure. Sure. I mean, I think probably we can open up for some Q&A. I think we have 4 more minutes. I think there is also one question that we have on the Q&A chat.
Yeah, how is AI engine trained, right? So yeah, I think we discussed in the later part. So there's two ways, right? One is like, okay, how you train and fine tune it, and another is how can we use RAG kind of an approach, right? Again, based on applications to applications, we kind of either use a RAG approach, and first of all, I think the models that we use are we don't develop a model, right? We use models from that are online, right? It could be OpenAI models, or it could be models like Llama 2 and Mistral. We take an existing large language model. The next thing we do is, okay, does the existing large language model solve my purpose? That's the first thing that we see. If that does not solve, probably there are different approaches. Right? Okay, does the RAG approach solve the problem? For some cases, like chatbots, that it would solve the problem out of box. But for more like a generation kind of a thing, maybe they won't, right? At that point, we kind of take a second step, which is, okay, now let's try to do fine tuning. Okay, now when we go into fine tuning, then again, based on an application, if it's more like probably I want to fine tune the model for test methodology generation. I'm just throwing it off there, right? Then we might get certain set of data from customers that are required for those use cases, and we would kind of fine tune it. But the way we kind of do it is we don't go into a process of, okay, let's take the data, let's train the model, right? It's more staged approach that we have, which is, okay, let's take the best model that is out there. Let's see if it works out of the box. If not, okay, can we do it with RAG? If not, fine tuning, then probably even training if we want it, right? But at this particular point, we have seen there are good performance, right, that you can kind of get out of the model by using RAG and fine tuning. Probably you don't want to get into too much of training. So yeah, that's what we see.
Yeah, that helps. I think that's pretty much the questions that we have. I think if anyone else also has some question, I think you can feel free to add your questions to the Q&A chat.
Yeah, probably. I think we would also share this presentation as well as the recording to the users who are registered.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sounds good. I think that's something.
Probably, I think if people are interested to connect with Soliton team to deep dive into the whole AI discussion, I think you'll be receiving an email from Soliton N, where you will also have access to this webinar recording. I think you could also respond to the same email if you wanted to have a one-on-one discussion with our team.
Thank you, friends. Right. I think we are on time. Oh, data is proprietary. Yeah. So the data is going to be proprietary, actually. Now, in terms of models, right? One thing that as we work with the customers, the model is something that we actually work with the customers to ensure that we pick. So we have certain recommendations and of what models that we can use. When now each company, right, they are starting to have AI governance, and they are also starting to have partnership with certain vendors, cloud vendors. Probably it's Microsoft or AWS, right? They are trying to have certain partnership. Through that partnership, it opens up that they can also use some of the existing large language models from those services. If the company, the enterprise, right, whatever with the company, right, if they have approved models, we kind of start from there. That's the best way that we go. So we are in line with the company's AI policy. But in cases where the company is open enough, we recommend online models. I think the Microsoft OpenAIs are good, so that's a model that we can start with. Or Llama 2s. Again, these are all models that again, to start with the pilot, right? Instead of you buying big set of GPUs, it's easy to kind of spin off some of these models online. So that can be made possible, and we kind of do the pilots with the customers. But again, all said, be it online or offline, within customer private networks or on the cloud, which is also within the customer's private network cloud, we ensure that the data is secure and it's not being used or trained by the model providers, right? So that is something that we ensure, actually. Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Then thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the time. Thank you for turning up and asking your questions. Feel free to let us know if you have anything over email. Yeah. Bye for now.
Thanks, Varun. Thanks for joining.